TCU goes 2-Q in the Corvallis Regional. Frogs have not won a postseason game in the past 2 years. Some concerning trends happening with this program.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We have some football game times that have been announced. Frogs can kick off the season at home against Abilene Christian at 7 p.m. They'll also play North Carolina on September 1st at 7 p.m. And they'll play Arizona State in a primetime game on a Friday night. So we'll break all that down later on in the show. But we start today really the only way we could. TCU baseball, their season has come to a close, and it ends in very disappointing fashion. They played 2 games in Corvallis. They lost both of them. They fell to USC, the 3 seed in that regional, by a final score of 13-1. They were never really in that game. Sawyer Stroh-Snyder had a home run to make the score 4-1. And that was about the only point in that ball game where you felt like TCU had a chance. That was in the 4th inning to cut the lead from 4-0 to 4-1. They could not score another run. They lost to Oregon State, the host team, 7-2. And that was the end of their season. As of this recording, Oregon State is playing USC in the regional final. Oregon State has to win 2 games against the Trojans to move on. They were up 6-1 early in that ball game against USC while I'm recording this right now. But as far as TCU goes, their season's over. And it was a very disappointing end to what was at times a really good year. I hate to let the ending of the season dictate the entire full picture, but I mean, they didn't even show up. Like, it was, I hate to question effort. I hate to get into like, oh man, they didn't look like they were completely focused. But for whatever reason, whether it was execution, whether it was just not a good mental approach, they were never in either of these games. I thought Tommy Lepore, who's been TCU starter all year long, Friday night starter all year long, I thought he came out way too amped up. You know, he usually sits between 94 to 96. He was throwing 97, 98 early in that game, but he wasn't locating. Everything was outside. And then his off-speed stuff, his slider, his changeup kept drifting away. His slider was just sitting up chest high. I mean, he could not find a way to bury that slider on the back foot like he typically does. And USC had some hard hit balls. They drew some walks. They had, a couple hit by pitch, free passes, and it culminated in 4 runs over 3 innings. And they sent him, packing early, which was a very rare sight. I mean, Tommy's been incredibly consistent all year long. Had a little bit of a rough stretch in his starts against Arizona and Utah, but bounced back really nicely in the Big 12 tournament. And the crazy thing to me about this was they played well. I mean, like, they won their last 2 regular season series. They didn't sweep those teams, but they took 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati at home. They took 2 out of 3 from Utah on the road. They won 2 games in the Big 12 tournament. They played a very competitive game against Arizona in the Big 12 tournament championship game. They're up 1-0 going into the 9th inning. Braden Sloan gave up a home run to tie it at 1. Wildcats won at 2-1 in 10 innings. So the hitting struggled that night, but pitching-wise, they cobbled together a really great effort. They scored 4 runs in their last 27 innings of baseball. And in Corvallis, which is a hitter's ballpark, Sawyer Stroh-Snyder, solo bomb against USC. Isaac Cadena, 2-run bomb against Oregon State in Game 2. That was it. That was their offense. And that 2-run bomb in the second game made it 7-2. It wasn't like it cut the lead in half or got them back in the ball game. It gave you a brief glimmer of hope. In the 7th, they had runners on first and second with nobody out. Strikeout, double play, inning over. They didn't threaten again. This team had flaws all year long. At the start of the year when they took on San Diego in their opening series, their weekend rotation was Cademan Parker, Tommy Lepore, Trevor Baumler. Parker got injured. He never really came fully back. He struggled at the end of the year. He made an appearance in that final game, but it was in a relief effort, and it was after the game had gotten out of hand. Tommy became your lockdown Friday night starter. He's coming back next year. So that's outstanding news. Well, I said all indications are he's coming back next year. And Trevor Baumler, freshman, struggled at times, put together some nice efforts as well. Ultimately, they go with Mason Brassfield, who started the game against Oregon State, gave up a 3-run homer early. Similar story to Tommy's. Just couldn't really hang in there, had to leave early. Braden Sloan came in and did a nice job in relief. But the offense was inconsistent. You had moving parts with the pitching staff. So in some ways, it's not surprising that they're not in the super regionals, but it was surprising the way it went down in this regional. This was not, I saw some people comparing this to a few years back in Kirk's first season. They went down to College Station, and that was a year that they thought maybe they should host. Did not. Lost the first game to Louisiana, but they lost a 1-run game to Louisiana. They beat Oral Roberts. They beat Louisiana. They got back to the regional final. They played a really competitive game against Texas A&M. They ran out of arms at the end of that ball game, and they lost. But this was not like that. They were never in it. And for all the talk about, and I want my team to have a chip on their shoulder. I want them to be upset if they feel like they got snubbed. But for all that discussion from the guys on the team about, man, we thought we should have hosted. We feel like we're getting disrespected. Well, then show that on the field. Don't go get outscored 20-3 in 2 ball games and get sent packing by Saturday afternoon. It's disappointing, man. And I think 2026 is shaping up to be a big year for Kirk Saarloos and this coaching staff. You've got a good young core. You got to keep them together this offseason. Sawyer Stroh-Snyder's a really good player. Noah Franco's a really good player. I think they got some young arms that can be good. Tommy Lepore coming back would be huge. If you can get Ben Abelt back, that would be massive too. You have pieces to build this thing. But this is now 2 years in a row. You did not win a postseason game. You didn't win a conference title. You didn't win a conference tournament title. That's not the standard of TCU baseball. Are there high expectations? Yes. Those expectations have been earned through the years with all the success. We finish year 4 of the Kirk Saarloos era. We have a Big 12 championship, which was awesome. And I think a respectable run in the College Station Regional, a team that ended up in Omaha that year. Year 2, make the Final Four. Great. Wonderful. You go on a tear in Fayetteville, you take down Arkansas, you take down Indiana State, you make it to the Final Four. You make it to Omaha, you make it to the Final Four teams. The last 2 seasons, though, you missed the tournament last year. Feel like you got snubbed? Okay, bottom line was you finished 14-16 in Big 12 play. You left the door open for the committee to say no thank you. This season, finish 3rd in the Big 12. You make it to the Big 12 tournament championship game. Do some nice things. But what was the signature series win? Sweeping Kansas? I would say that's it. Go on the road to Arizona, you lose 2 out of 3. Lost 2 out of 3 to Southern Miss. Had a bad series loss to UCF. And then you go out in the regional and you just get blasted. This should not be a program that goes multiple years without winning a postseason game. That's just not the standard of TCU baseball. So some questions have to be answered. Get involved in the portal. Bill Mosiello, another season, another chance to kind of get used to what he wants as the offensive coach, as the hitting coach. But something's off here. Something's missing. Because this should be a team that is at least fighting for a super regional year in and year out. And that wasn't the case. And I know, like, it was crazy. Texas just fell. Like, as right before I started recording, Texas lost their regional to UTSA. Vandy, the number 1 overall seed, they got knocked out by Wright State on Sunday afternoon. Didn't even make their regional final. But that gives me no solace today. Because it's not like TCU competed really hard and had a chance and just fell. No, this was a butt kicking from start to finish. And that can't be what TCU baseball is. Big questions this offseason and leading into next year. When we come back, got some game times for TCU football. We'll break that down next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. First of the month. Happy June, everybody. Bills are coming out starting today. I was talking to my wife this morning. All right. Mortgage is coming out Monday. Insurance. Make sure we have enough in our checking account. You ever open up your banking app and you're like, wait, what the heck just happened to my money? Monarch Money can make it easier for you. They can help you budget. But it's not only that, it's a financial command center. You can manage your investments, all of your accounts in one place. So with your spouse, with your partner, you can put it all in one place so you can easily see, okay, here's what we're spending. Here's what we need to do. Here's what our plan needs to be. MonarchMoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. Half off your first year if you just go to MonarchMoney.com as a new customer and use LOCKEDONCollege as a promo code. Money is stressful. Managing can be tough. Make it easier with Monarch Money. Proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Again, code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. So for the first 3 weeks of the season, we have some game times for TCU football and some good opportunities for the Frogs early on. September 1st, 7 p.m., taking on North Carolina in a standalone Monday night game. I've talked about this before. I'll talk about it again before the season starts. This is the first time, really since the Colorado game and that season opener a few years back, where TCU is going to be on the forefront of college football on the opening weekend of games. And on the forefront of college football, just in a weekend in general. Bill Belichick on the sidelines, his debut as a college football coach, all the drama and all the intrigue surrounding that, surrounding his relationship with Jordan Hudson. It's all going to culminate in that first game against TCU. And regardless of how good UNC ends up being, I don't even know if that's going to be a great team. A win over North Carolina would be a good step forward for the Frogs. Also, this non-conference slate is just, I mean, you got to beat North Carolina, you got to beat SMU. Or at least split those games. But that's going to be a huge story in your season. If you go 0-2 in those contests, we're hitting the panic button real early. If you win those games, there's a lot of optimism around this team and what they could do and what their ceiling could be moving forward. So 7 p.m. chance to take on Bill Belichick and that squad in the season opener. Have all eyes on you. Another game where you're going to have all eyes on you. Defending Big 12 champions, Arizona State on the road in Tempe on Friday, September 26th, 8 p.m. Central Time on Fox. So a little bit of a late start, but a chance to play the defending Big 12 champs. Arizona State's another one of those teams. Like, they're a fun squad. Kenny Dillingham is kind of a darling right now for good reason. He's done a good job there. Cam Scattaboo led them to an incredible year last year. And if you go win that game, then there's a lot of optimism around this program. TCU needs to get back on the conversation. I saw Mike Craven from Texas football. Actually, he did a little video about this over the weekend. He was like, it feels like nobody is really considering TCU as a dark horse Big 12 title contender and that feels wrong. And I was like, yes, it does feel wrong because it is wrong. You've got your quarterback coming back. You got a lot of your defense coming back. You finished last season really strong. There are reasons to love this team. There are reasons to really like what they can do, what they can bring to the table. And I don't totally know. I mean, like, it's just confusing me because Baylor's a program that and it doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, if TCU wins, it's going to take care of itself. I'm not like a conspiracy theorist that thinks even if they find a way to win big games, nobody's going to notice. So all these preseason accolades don't matter. But Baylor's getting a lot of talk, and so Robertson is. And it's like, what was the difference between those two teams in their seasons? Baylor beat TCU by 3 points at home. They got waxed by LSU, like LSU's third and fourth team in the Texas Bowl. And having a more marquee matchup in bowl season and beating TCU head-to-head, like those are two things that are pushing them forward when we talk about preseason hype and who the best teams in the Big 12 are going to be. Like, that doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't matter at the moment. What does matter, though, is winning games and getting back in front of the national spotlight. It matters when we talk about long-term and the health of college football and where it's going and where it's moving. But it's also just beneficial for this team and this program as they try to recruit and stay competitive with everybody else across the sport. So North Carolina and Arizona State, like, one thing I like about this schedule, we're going to find out how good this team is early. And it'll be a challenge because you've got an offensive line that's trying to gel together. You have a defensive coordinator that you like that's done some nice things. But are we totally sure in year two it's going to be a big improvement? We hope so. But we're going to find out really quick against some good offenses. Your offense, which is supposed to be really good and supposed to lead your team, it's going to get tested early against Bill Belichick. And he's going to have a good game plan for what you want to do. He's going to try to take away that passing game. If you're one-dimensional against Bill Belichick, you're going to have a hard time. So we'll find out, where's your running game at? What's your offensive line doing? Do you have a running back this year, or are you just doing this thing by committee again? Like, all of these things are important, but those are some of the things that are really going to separate this team or tell the story of this team's season. And so we'll get a good read on that in the first month of the year. There's some challenges with that. You got to be ready to play. But the good news is you'll also, being exposed isn't bad if you can win the games while you're being exposed. If you can regroup and take those lessons that you learn and say, okay, this is what teams are going to try to do to us. This is how we have to counter that. You know, we survived it. Now we got to figure out a way to handle it better so that when we're in tough games later in the year, we can stand up to the task. And then finally, in a big win for Tailgaters, home opener, 7 p.m. against ACU. And that's an ESPN Plus ball game. I would imagine, I guess I need to look this up. I would imagine TCU gets to pick that kickoff time because I know, I mean, that's going to be produced by TCU in-house. ESPN will have a hand in it, but that's mainly a TCU production. So I would imagine they get to choose, and it totally makes sense. It's going to be 1,000,000 degrees outside. So play that game at night. Make sure you're as cool as you can be. And hopefully we'll get to see some young players. I mean, I would love to see, I imagine Ken Seals is going to get some reps too, but I would love to see Adam Schobel out there throwing it around in the second half. I want to see some of these freshman wide receivers get out there and make plays. Get some good reps from a young O-lineman. There's a lot of benefits. I mean, it's not the most intriguing game for us as fans and for TV people, but there's benefits to playing that game. I do wish, and I don't know how much control TCU has over this. I wish they could have said, hey, I know it's a short week, but we will play ACU on a Saturday after playing North Carolina on Monday. Give us that bye week in between ACU and SMU. We don't need a bye week before our FCS warm-up game. Like, we'll figure it out. We have enough players that we can work this out. I wish they would have done that, but I don't have any control over that part of it. But hey, you know, I think you could tell last year the way they took down Long Island, it was much different than the way they played Nicholls State the year before. and you saw a more successful team this past season. When we come back, somebody asked me a question that made me laugh, and I'll expand on it. I'll tell you what that means next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Programming note. First off, if you haven't heard, we got a new podcast in the Locked On Podcast Network, the Portal Podcast, and it's hosted by our friend Brian Smith, who does a great job. He's covered recruiting for a long time. I need to have him on the show soon. Talk about TCU's portal class, but give that a try if you haven't here on the Locked On Network. Also, during the month of June, it's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every other month, we'll do 5 days a week. I'll return to 5-day-a-week episodes in July. But this is the 1 month in the year that Locked On allows us to go in what they call off-season mode. So we get to take a little bit of a break. And anyway, I'll have episodes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Appreciate you guys tuning in, listening, or watching on YouTube, however you consume this. Tell your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all the good things. Okay, so one thing I love about doing the show is people can chime in. And not everybody has positive things to say to me, but people talk a lot in the YouTube comments, or they hit me up on Twitter. So I love hearing from you guys. And there was a question that made me laugh when I saw it on Friday's episode. This is from BB 2023. Random thought. Do y'all remember QB Mike Collins? I do remember QB Mike Collins, who started his career at Rice, I believe, and then transferred in. And I was actually thinking about Mike the other day because Clint Foster, who runs No Context TCU, and, well, he does other things than that. But anyway, Clint, big TCU sports fan, does the reaction videos. He posted a video of Jalen Reagor scoring a touchdown on a tunnel screen against Baylor in a game that TCU won over Baylor in Waco in 2018 by the final score of 16-9. They were down to their fourth string quarterback in Grayson Muehlstein, and they won that ball game. Mike Collins started that game, injured his foot, had to come out, tried to tough it out, just couldn't do it. But that 2018 season was wild. It started with Sean Robinson at quarterback. They won their first couple of games. They went and played Ohio State in Jerry World. I was there. That was a good competitive ball game. TCU lost 40-28, but they were right there in it up until the fourth quarter. And I left Jerry World that night thinking, okay, this team is going to be pretty good. Then they lose to Texas. After a win over Iowa State, they lose 3 straight, including a loss to Kansas in Lawrence. And not this version of Kansas, back when Kansas was horrifically bad. So they're 3-5, and they start having injuries to their quarterbacks. And Mike Collins was a starter for a while. They get to Baylor. They have to put in Grayson Muehlstein because of these injuries. But I've always wanted to know more, and I've reached out to Muehlstein. He's never gotten back to me. Maybe this will be the year. If anybody knows him, if you guys can connect me, that'd be great. But I would love to do a podcast series on the 3-game stretch. They beat Baylor, they beat Oklahoma State to get to bowl eligibility, and then they beat Cal in the Cheez-It Bowl in one of the craziest games of all time, 10-7 in overtime. But I would love to talk to some of those players about that 3-game window, because they found a way to just hold on for dear life, and Jalen Reagor scored a couple touchdowns against the Bears to win that game. Then they actually had a really good offensive game plan against Oklahoma State. Like, Sonny Cumbie was in his bag. They did a nice job. They got Jalen involved in a lot of different ways. And they scored some points that night and did a really nice job to get to bowl eligibility. And then they had the long layoff before the bowl game. They take on Cal in one of the craziest games of all time, and they won. But Grayson ended up being 3-0 as a starter. Like, they finished 7-6 after an abysmal, run in the middle of the season. And I just have a lot of questions about how they did that and what their game plan was and just the way they approached it and what they thought during all those games. But to answer your question, yes, I do remember Mike Collins. And I love talking about random TCU players. So who are some of your favorites? Because I know there's guys that have been through the program that maybe don't jump off the page for everybody else, but are close to your heart for one reason or the other. So I don't know why you were thinking about him specifically, but yeah, I do think about him, and I actually think about the 2018 team a lot because even though they don't go down in history as one of the best, I thought the way they finished the season was really awesome, and it's one of those cool college football stories that I think makes the sport charming, and that, you know, teams that maybe aren't champions or win championships can still be remembered really fondly depending on what they do. We'll be back on Wednesday. Thanks for watching the show. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcast.